when it turns red. There we go. Okay, we're on. Hi, people. Welcome to Plain Mundane Show. This is Alex. And my mother, this is Judith. And what we're going to do today is we're going to have a discussion about aliens. We're going to talk about aliens. We're going to talk about a UFO encounter that we have discovered in the last, 2 years? 2.5 years?
Come back to remembrance.
Yeah, it just, we both remembered this and realized we were together and it wasn't a dream. We had a fifth kind encounter. I think the UFO scientist, his name is J. Allen Hynek, Hynek, I think it is. Hynek is the one that made up the nomenclature system of close encounters of the first kind, second kind, third kind, fourth kind, fifth kind. If you see a UFO somewhere in the sky, that's the first kind. If it's the second kind, I think it's closer than 500 yards. If it's the third kind, the UFO got close to you and your reality was affected, or something happened to you, or maybe you saw something through the window, maybe an alien or whatever. Fourth kind is when you actually have communication with them. Fifth kind, I'm not sure whether we had a fourth kind or a fifth kind. What do you call it when you go in the craft and you're having conversations with these beings for an hour or more? I think we had a fifth kind experience. Close encounter of the fifth. What was that movie called that Spielberg? Was that the third kind? Which really wasn't the third kind. It was the fourth or fifth kind. I don't know. I think we had a fifth kind. So what happened, Mom? What do you remember? Let me set this up first before we go into it. I went to my mother's house about 2.5 years ago, and I kept trying to remind myself when I would go visit her, I'd be like, oh, I got to remember to ask Mom about this dream. And I don't know why, I just wanted to share it with you and see if I think I was just trying to see if I told you about this when I was a kid, or if you knew about it. And I said, Mom, I kept having what I thought was a reoccurring dream of an alien fifth kind encounter in my front yard. If you look at the picture on the screen at the top right, that's the house. Look from the corner, right from where I took this picture this morning, that's the actual picture from today. I took that picture on the way over here. In the grass, if you go across the grass to the house, the first window on your left, that was my bedroom window, my front. And in the middle there's a U-shaped driveway and there's the front porch. Those are both in the experience. So I got a picture and I came over and we're going to do this broadcast. So when I started to tell my mother about this, I said, you came in my bedroom and you got me out of bed and said you wanted me to meet somebody. And we went out into the front yard. And she started nodding. She goes, yeah. She goes, yeah. We went out they were over in the side yard up by the ditch. And she goes, you remember too. What? So we're both realizing that we had our memory wiped or something happened. Maybe they didn't even wipe anything. It was just so traumatic. Our own brains took it out. So how did it start for you? When did you? Were you in bed asleep? And where was I? Was I in my room asleep?
You were asleep, I was asleep. And then I became aware that these beings were right outside on the east side of the house.
You knew that from being in bed?
Yes.
That beings were outside in front of the house?
Yes.
So it was telepathic. And you knew it was the east side in this side yard? So you had to have known that.
We like to plant gardens.
Yeah, we used to have a garden in the back of that lot, didn't we? Well, I remember there was a pile of lumber or something that was always back there, or
We're building a chicken house that never got built.
Yeah, we were going to build a coop that never got built. But yeah, it was between the coop and the street right there. See where that light pole is? They have a street light now. I don't think we had a street light in the area.
No, you didn't.
This occurred, when was it, 1969? I was in kindergarten or first grade. It would have been 69 or 70. If I was 5.
I think you were first grade.
I think I was in first grade because I remember I had show and tell at school. It comes up in the story.
You show and tell this?
I told them something they showed me I wanted to take to show and tell. And they laughed. Telepathically, they laughed. They thought that was amusing. I thought, wow, can I take this to school and show it to show and tell? And I remember they were my height, just a little bit taller. So if I was 5 or 6, probably 6, 6.5. Years old, and they were just a little bit taller than me, which would go with about the size of the craft. Anyway, so go back to what you were doing in bed. So you know there's beings out in the front yard. Did you just get up and go look?
I'm wondering what the heck they're doing there. Are they a danger? Were you out in the yard there already?
No, but I have a vague recollection that I was already awake in my room doing the same thing, looking out the window at them. So I think, anyway, you go ahead.
Well, I just remember I got to get out there so I can monitor what's happening.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Because I didn't know if they had called you out there or what had gone on.
What about, I won't say her name, what about my sister who was there? Was she involved, or was she?
Nobody was involved except just you and I.
Okay, that's right. For me. So the first recollection I had of this memory when I first told you about the dream was I remember you coming into my bedroom and saying, "Come here, I want you to meet somebody."
I don't even remember.
Do you remember that?
Mm-mm.
But I'm thinking now, I'm having a vague, it's like when you try to remember a dream when you just woke up and 15 minutes later you can't remember what you were dreaming about, but you have a vague recollection of what it was, maybe a scene. Same thing. It's like the movie The Hangover. I kind of remember looking out my window and seeing the craft and some beings. There might have been one right at my window looking at me right through the window where that bush is.
And as a parent, I look back and think, why didn't you go to your dad and tell him? And that's when he worked for a company in the north.
Mm-hmm.
And went out of town and had meetings in that state.
Is that Ohio? Do you know he worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base?
Yeah.
Do you know he told me that right before he passed away.
Huh.
I said, "You worked at Wright-Pat?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "What did you work on?" He said, "I don't remember." But that's where the UFOs are. That's where they took the aliens, allegedly from Roswell to Wright-Patterson. And that's the company that Dad worked for was in a town right next to that Air Force Base.
That's interesting.
Yeah. There's a lot of history coming out. So, anyway, so go ahead. So you were wondering why I didn't go to Dad?
Well, I knew he wasn't there. I knew why you didn't go. You had good sense.
Yeah.
You just don't get things worked up.
Do you know, in my lifetime, I've always had a paranoia of looking out a window at night because I don't want to see the face of an alien.
Not until we started talking about this.
I mean, guys, maybe some of you, I don't like to be around windows at night because I don't want to look out because I think there's going to be an alien looking right back at me. And now And now I'm wondering if that's not what happened at this house, right? Because it's a super vague recollection. I think it was standing maybe 10, 12 feet from the window, just right there. And that's a tall vertical window that goes low. It's an upright window. It's like a full body window. So did you get up and go out in the yard? Or did you? You were by yourself. You weren't with me.
Mm-mm.
According to what I remember, if you came in my room and you said, "Come with me, I want you to meet someone," maybe you came straight from the bedroom telepathically and you knew what to do.
Are you saying you went in your sister's room?
No, nothing to do with her. It was just, I was in my bed. I don't think I was asleep there. I might have just run and jumped back in my bed if I heard you coming. And so when you walked in, I already knew you were coming, and I got up.
You did that a lot, didn't you?
Kids are still up playing in the room. Mom's coming, they go lay in bed. But I'm just wondering if I saw you maybe out in the yard with them and then they sent you back in the house.
Well, I was in the yard at one point,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't remember going out the front door to get there. I don't know how I got to the front yard.
Without me. This is by yourself. This is an experience you had by yourself.
Well, yeah, trying to figure out what the heck's going on out in my yard.
Because you asked me, you said when I went outside, you said, were they standing in the yard like this and you had your hands on your waist? Like your fists on your waist? Like a coach? And with the whistle? And I said, no, I didn't see that. When I went out in the yard, I saw the craft, the kind of like a doorway was open. There was like a ramp.
Yeah.
It wasn't stairs, it was a ramp. And it was, but they were inside. I don't remember ever any of them in the yard, but you do. And now I vaguely remember one standing in front of my window. So somehow, what I want to know is how did they know to come to my yard and come get me? It was either somebody we knew working at NASA, or my father, or for some other reason I can't even imagine.
Yeah, your father could still be working at Wright Patterson.
At that time?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that. You know, I just found out it was in 2015. We were sitting outside his place at a picnic table, and he said he worked at Wright Patterson right after he got out of the Air Force. He was in the Korean War.
What year?
Oh, I don't even remember. And I remember I already knew a lot about UFOs and aliens and Wright Patterson in Ohio and the town of Dayton. And when he said he worked there, I went, really? I said, what'd you do? And he was having a lot of trouble with his memory. He'd had cancer for 10 years already. But he could not remember for the life of him. He was just like, I can't remember what I did there. But this is getting stranger as we talk more. But, so you were out there by yourself without me before you came back in?
I suspect I was.
You suspect. I almost have a vague recollection of seeing you in a gown walking that way from my window. You might have even known I was looking out the window. And you can't remember.
That sounds familiar.
Does it?
I would have done that to prepare you to not be frightened.
Yeah. You know, I look back, this was a friendly encounter. I don't remember, you know, you hear a lot of people when they discuss alien abductions or encounters with aliens, they were pulled out of their bed and levitated through the ceiling into a craft, and then they were poked and prodded and sexually abused or some torture, you know, needles going into the uterus or the eyeballs or whatever. You know, there was none of that. There was no operations going on or any trauma. It was friendly visit. Did you get any idea that it was negative?
You know the sign that we says that we hear it in movies and TVs is this "do no harm."
Right.
That's the big sign on our foreheads. Do no harm.
Yeah. Do not harm me. So we went out in the yard. Well, what I remember is what I first started to recall a few years ago was you came into my room and you said,
Come see this.
come with me. I want you to meet someone. And like you said, you might have been thinking of a way to introduce me without being frightened. But I think I get the idea that I already knew who I was going to see because I'd already seen them. And so I was excited to take your hand.
In the window.
You know, I can't see their faces. It's like their faces are blurred out.
Yeah.
But I think you saw their faces. Maybe they read your mind that I was going to be frightened and they hid their faces. So what did we do? I remember going down the hall with you, holding your hand. We went up through the porch, out the front door. We turned right and we started walking towards that side yard. Just right by that street light post.
Out by the street.
And they were up by the street, by the ditch.
That's by the neighbor's, that's by their driveway.
Right. Yeah, I took this picture in front of the neighbor's driveway. This is still incredible. We're talking about this and we're filling in all each other's details of a dream. So, I remember it was kind of a windy, breezy night too.
Warm.
And it was warm. Not sweaty warm, but it wasn't cold.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember walking out, and you were on my left, walking across the yard, because when I went up the ramp, you let go of my hand and you stood on the grass by the craft, but you did not go up in with me. Why did you not go up in?
I have no idea.
Maybe they were sending some kind of command, like, let the boy go, let him come in.
I don't know. Maybe I'd already been in.
Maybe you went in and flew off with them and came back or something.
That just rang a bell. Flew off with them. I think that happened.
With you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never thought about that before.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, what was the experience for you? I mean, I told you I had this dream and we figured out you were there with me, but actually it was your experience and I was with you as well. Well, the only difference in my recollection is I was inside the craft and you were not with me. You waited in the yard.
So it could be your experience, not mine.
But you were there. It's weird. How do you explain an alien fifth kind encounter when you can't remember all the details, but you share the same memory? Woo. So.
Did you ever tell Dad this?
No, I didn't remember this before he passed away. It was like a year or so afterward. It just started coming to my mind. I'm kind of afraid to talk about it because if I'm over there taking pictures today and now we're talking about it, I don't want them to come back. If they know,
it's true.
It's true. If they know telepathically I'm trying to dig up all these memories and you are too, then they might come back.
If these are big bad brothers, that would be bad.
Yeah.
It's the same people as we had before. That's okay.
Yeah, if it was the same guys as before. But what I remember, when I walked out, I went up into the craft. You stood on the left side of the ramp. I went up in, I turned right. There was the boss alien person was there to greet me, and there were two others, but I got the feeling that they were like deckhands. They were just two deckhands on the craft. Let me use this. They were like two deckhands, and they showed me screens. There were like flat screens, like an like a tablet. But those didn't exist in 69 or 70. I remember I was looking, I was in the... For us, for them it did. That's true, I never thought of that. Technology existed, we just didn't have the revelation of it.
Yeah.
I guess that's true for all technology that we don't even know about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I walked in, I turned right, and I was looking towards the outer wall of the craft, which was much larger on the inside than it looks on the outside.
Okay, explain that.
I don't know, but it's like when you look from the outside, it was probably no bigger than 18 feet in diameter. But to me, I was a little kid, it seemed huge, but now I look and it was only like longer than a station wagon or, So.
But once you got inside, it extended the...
You were inside. Once you get inside, it's like there's rooms everywhere and halls going off. And I wonder if it's like a portal to another dimension and you're kind of halfway on the other side in their world or something.
Mm.
Blows your mind, doesn't it?
Well, it does.
But I remember they showed me screens. I don't think it was as much... I've had this idea that it wasn't as much as they were teaching me something, but they were getting my reaction to things. And they showed me things on screens, and I don't remember if it was violence or sexual or nature or science.
What if it was just for this thing you were doing right here, just so that you could go and tell them what you saw and what happened to you?
So I could share in the future what happened to me, because they wanted me to share.
Yeah.
So anyway, you were saying you were inside and when you walked in, it extended?
You may have shared that with me because when you were telling me that you did this, I saw it in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I saw going down a long hall. There wasn't a long hall there, but from the outside of it. But inside there's a long hall.
Yeah. And I've heard in other alien abduction experiences, people talk about the craft being much larger on the inside. There's more rooms and hallways than you can imagine, and it's just much bigger on the inside. So how the experience ended for me was I think as I walked in and I walked down the hall to the right along the perimeter wall on the inside, I was like on a perimeter wall, looking at these flat screens. And the boss one was standing behind my right shoulder, and the other two were on my left. And they were showing me things, and I just remember, I don't know if I was learning or seeing what I was going to do in the future, or maybe I was being shown things so that they could read my reaction and see how I would react to things. But when they were done, they showed me this pen-looking thing. It looked like a remote. You know, like, you remember those pens that had all the different colors with the springs? And you had red, blue,
Yeah.
green, black. It was about that big around. It was kind of like those fusion razors that had the 5 blades. You know, it has got that big rubbery round looking knob thing. It was a little bigger. It was like a fat pen, like a Mont Blanc pen, but a little fatter. But it was silver and it had buttons all over it. And that's what I wanted to take to show and tell. They showed it to me. I remember the leader, he handed me this thing, and I remember taking it and I was looking at it and trying to, and I was asking, what does this button do? And he said, push this one, I think. And that's the last thing I remember.
Oh, that reminded
But
me.
I asked him, I remember I said, can I take it to Miss Cooper's class and show it for show and tell?
No.
No, you can just push that button.
That was like, where the creatures from outer space that look like animals live in New York City.
Men in Black.
Men in Black. Remember look at our.
Yeah, the wand and it's.
Yeah, and I'm going, no, don't look. There you would have been.
That part seems to be real. So some of that effect in the movie were added from real experiences. And that just happens to be in my experience. But I remember they were amused telepathically. They were laughing. That I thought, cool, can I take this to school for show and tell? But I do have one vague memory walking back across the front yard with you back towards the porch. So I remember going back to the house.
Mm-hmm.
But I even have, I've thought about this for the last year and a half. I even have a memory of being in class at school the next day thinking, should I tell my story? Can I tell? I might have told my story. Who knows if I got up and I don't know. What if you were my school teacher and the kid got up for show and tell? I just want to tell you about these guys that visited me last night in my yard. And they might have gone, great. Sit back down, please. I don't know. So now when you waited for me in the yard, when I was looking at screens, here's where we had a discussion about, I thought the door was open and we were on the ground the whole time, and your head was at the bottom of the doorway and you were just right there waiting for me to come back out. And the door was open the whole time, the ramp was down. Is that what you remember?
Pretty much. I have such little memory.
Oh, I'm right there, don't worry, it's not you. Like I said, I wonder if it was the trauma and the strangeness that made our own minds erase that. Well, they did have the device. I had it in my hand. Just like Men in Black, it works. That seems to be real. You said at one point that we took off and flew off and came back.
And a little. Would it have gone back, shrunk back to a small cell? It would have had to have, because it would have been so big, it would have shown up on radar. And if they're trying to keep it small,
That's another thing. How does a craft land in that yard at night? What time was it? Would it have been? Maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, too.
or two.
See, we just agree on the time like that. Like, yeah, it's just a given. But we're talking about a fifth kind encounter. It just still shocks me. Yeah, 1 or 2. We both just said, yeah, like remembering a picnic. You know?
We didn't eat, did we?
No, they didn't give me any food. I don't think they eat. I don't know. But it's, what else was I going to ask? Since we've talked, I've had a lot of things that have come up in my memory I wanted to ask you about. Like, I do have a vague recollection now of one standing right outside my window, and that would explain my phobia of looking out the window at night when it's dark.
Okay, my phobia at night about looking out at windows is because I'm expecting to see something that I'm afraid of and fearful.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking quickly, and I'm looking north, south, east, west, corner. No, it's not there.
But you always automatically look, you have like a
Automatic.
phobia. I call it a phobia, but
Yeah.
I have the same thing. I remember, like, in all my houses, I've always, when I go to the kitchen, if there's a kitchen window, I try not to look out the window. I just do my stuff and turn the light off and go right up back up
That's
street.
right.
I don't want to, like, start looking out the window and go, oh, there he is again. Crap.
And for him to go, well, hello again.
So, and then for him to say what?
We meet again.
We meet again.
Do you
This is-
still want me to come this with you this time?
Yeah. Have you ever heard of Dan Burrish?
No.
Dan Burrish is a biologist, and have you ever heard of MJ12 or Majestic 12?
Oh, yes.
You had Corso's book, didn't you? Philip Corso, The Day After
Yes.
Roswell. Guys, when I was growing up as a teenager, my mother had Philip Corso's book on the bookshelf. That's how I knew about Roswell, before the internet. Because my mother told me about it. And then I've got another video where my bishop at church was at the Roswell cleanup in 47 in July 8th. And he told me about what the dead aliens looked like, and the one with the burnt cheeks that I've got in my picture that I found, that was the one at Wright-Patterson, where Dad worked.
Isn't that strange? It runs in families.
I don't know. Oh, but Dan Burrish, I was going to tell you, he's got a video. He was interviewed on Project Camelot, this other podcaster that makes videos, this woman. And she interviews a lot of whistleblowers and people who have alien experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And she interviewed Dan Burrish, and he's on MJ12. And he said also Dick Cheney's on MJ12. And remember, I worked for him.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually know someone who's on MJ12. But Dan Burrish had the same experience when he was 7 years old. He ended up at Area 51 working underground. He was doing skin biopsies on this alien that had a degenerative skin disease, and they were trying to heal it. So he would go in and take biopsies of the skin and poke it with needles, and it hurt. And it would say, he would be in pain.
Oh.
And he would have to walk like into a submarine chamber, and they had a button where there would be a bomb blow. If anything went wrong, they would blow him up and the alien. That was my message. And he said one time he tripped and the alien jumped up on his chest to communicate with him, and they almost pushed the vacuum button and whooshed him out into vapor.
Oh.
And he said, no. And he was telepathically talking to the alien and telling the guys on the radio at the same time, it's okay, he's not hurting me. But they had a button where if you went in to be with the alien and anything went wrong or there was any kind of threat to the base or the person in there, they would hit a button and everybody in that enclosure would be blown out the tubes. And he had to prevent that by yelling in his radio, no! But when he was 7 years old, he was in a park and he was playing football with his grandfather. I think it was in Arizona or New Mexico or California. And a craft came down, he got in it and flew off, and he came back, and his father waited underneath a tree I think this is the story. You can look up Dan Bursch's story when he was a child. But he came back and he said it was a friendly experience, and they flew him around and showed him things, and he came back home. And that's what I did. I think if we took off. Now, if I was in the craft being shown things, I don't know if the door closed and we could have. I think there's no inertia. Like when the ship takes off, you don't go, whoa, like a subway train, you know. You just, poof, you're just going somewhere else, but you don't feel like you're moving.
And they don't want to frighten you.
Right. Which is odd because you hear stories about other abductions that almost sound like a devilish attack, you know, or a demon attack, where these people have the paralysis and they can't move and they just feel this yucky low vibration feeling, and they almost have to cast them out by using the name of Jesus Christ or something, you know. But it's almost like a demonic attack, which I also have had, and I have a video on that too. Remember in the basement in Idaho? So, but this wasn't like that at all.
No, this was mundane.
This was mundane, yes. Worldly. Plain mundane. The worldly plane. Is that all you want to talk about?
For the moment.
For the moment. All right, folks. We might do this show again because we might have more memories come out, and we'll talk about it later. But this is how my mother and I remember our alien fifth kind encounter, close encounter.
Bye.
Bye. Signing off. Ciao, everybody. Bye. Please hit like, subscribe, ring the bell.